everybody, and welcome to a brand new spoiler review for Season 2, Episode 8, the season finale of House of the Dragon here on a special episode of Geek Bites brought to you by the
Geek Buddies! Hey!
Well, we're back at it to say goodbye to Season 2 after the season finale last night. So we're recording this on a Monday and dropping the review later on today. This is called The Queen Who Ever Was, not never was, The Queen Who Ever Was, written by Sarah Hess, directed by Geeta Vasant Patel. And this one sees us focusing on Team Black and Team Green getting ready for war, while Daemon has a final revelation that changes him. Rhaenyra gets a dragon. The Lannister gets another tall, strong female to have a kind of relationship with, and Alicent makes a surprising plea to Rhaenyra to end the war before it begins. And before we begin, let's introduce ourselves. I am the outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor and a voiceover actor starting today from iHeartMedia, Realm, and Blumhouse TV. You can listen to the first episode of Dream Sequence.
A man of many talents and many accomplishments for sure. Michael, going to you. Episode 8 here, The Queen Who Ever Was. Overall thoughts. What did you think?
Well, when we started this season, shit had hit the fan and Team Green and Team Black were about to go to war. And when we ended this season, shit had hit the fan and Team Green and Team Black were about to go to war. So, interesting episode. It's going to be fun to talk about because while I think this was yet another A+ excellent episode of television,
Sure,
'twas not the best season finale. It kind of feels, looking back at Daemon's long journey through Luigi's mansion and Rhaenyra running through several hills to find her dragon. It kind of feels like they knew where they wanted to end, and they had these 8 episodes, and they said, well, let's see how far we can stretch this and have all the fights happen in season 3. It's kind of like, not that, I mean, that's oversimplifying. We had some amazing moments. We had some amazing battles. Like, this season was a great season. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter who are frustrated post the finale, saying that this was a bad season of television or as bad as season 8 of Game of Thrones. No, it wasn't. Season 8 of Game of Thrones is terrible. But this was a great season of television that didn't necessarily get us where we hoped to go. I think we entered this season with the promise of we're about to see this war, and there was a lot of chess pieces moving around and a lot of great character work and a lot of amazing sequences that kind of ended us up with we're about to go to war. So the war is a lot closer. Season 3, I don't know what else they can do except fight. But so great episode. Every single scene, Shannon and I were talking about it last night. Every single scene I love. Every single character interaction I thought was super interesting. I thought there was some amazing moments, but definitely got to the end and you went, okay. Guess I gotta wait 2 years. Like I think Rhaenyra says to Ulf and the others, she's like, we're going to war in 2 days. And I was like, well, those are going to be a very long 2 days for fans of this show.
Yeah, it's made it reminiscent of Star Trek too. If days mean hours by the book, it's what he did with Khan. That makes sense there. 2 days means 2 years for sure. Shannon, a bit of a blue balls season finale, a bit of a tease season finale. Didn't quite consummate things. And just to be fair to the creators here, I think it was Sarah Hess and one of the main writers who came forward and said that it wasn't their idea to make it 8 episodes, and they had to shove everything into 8 episodes because they cut it down by 2. This feels like an season. It feels like an 8th episode of a 10 episode season, but now we don't get a finale that really had big battles and a big ending here. What did you think of this particular season finale there, Shannon?
Great episode, very disappointing finale. The entire season has been build, and it just kind of leaves us wanting at the end. Now, the things that we do get, they're great. I mean, I think anytime you get Rhaenyra and Alicent in a scene, there's fireworks. It's a lot of fun to watch. I mean, you get to see a lot of conversations to be had that we had been waiting for. And knowing, like, after like some of the things we talked about last week, again, me not knowing the books, I mean, I got severely corrected in the comments. But I'm kind of like, man, that's something else I really would have liked to have heard more about. Is it a giant battle? No. But it looking at the story that they're telling, And all right, here's this book. Here's where we can adjust. Here's where we can blow some things out. I think you look at however many seasons they're planning on doing. I had heard 5, but yeah, I'm incorrect. You look at the big events that historically Game of Thrones has had in their penultimate episode. It's like it seems like they got to the end of this one, and it's just like, well, we've got Rook's Rest, but outside of that, that's kind of all we have for this season, which is disappointing because again, we're not going to see this the follow up probably until 2026. So it's disappointing because I mean I really enjoyed everything about this season. I mean, people calling it a bad season of television, I vehemently disagree with. But I would not disagree with anyone who's feeling a little disappointed by the conclusion.
Yeah, I would say an incredibly well written episode of television from Sarah Hess. Some fantastic emotional scenes from Alyn and Corlys, Rhaenyra and Alicent at the end. Even Daemon's vision I thought was incredible. Some of the interactions with Halaena and Aemond I thought yielded some interesting fruit down the road. So there was some great writing and great acting, and some of the cinematography and direction here from Geeta Basant Patel I thought was some of the best we've ever seen, rivaling anything Miguel Sapochnik has put on screen there, in my opinion. But you can tell that they had a budget for one battle all season. That was Rook's Rest, and that was it. And so clearly they had, and that's hard to say for a show that clearly spends a lot of money on the dragon effects, a lot of money to make it seem realistic. It seems that they were limited on what kind of battle they could show. And if you watch that post-doc, mini doc they do after every episode, Ryan Condell made it clear that next season is going to be all-out war. So I hope they satisfy us in that way, and we carry that tingling over into season 3. Yeah, Mike, one more thing.
I think they really thought that last week's episode with the dragon, like putting all of the bastard children, all the bastards in front of the dragons and being like, okay, let's choose. And like, that was a very amazing dynamic sequence that was super hard from an effect standpoint and from a shooting standpoint. I think they kind of thought, we're giving everybody like just full dragon episode, like dragon carnage, dragon eating, lowborn, Ulf running around, Hugh running around. And it was an amazing episode with an amazing shot at the end. And I think they were kind of like, to Shannon's point with penultimate episodes with the Red Wedding and other things, I think they thought, all right, we're really giving the dragons, and now we can do what we usually do with Game of Thrones and use this last episode to sort of set the stage. And I just think that as cool as all that was, I was really bummed that I didn't get to talk about it with you guys because I couldn't talk. But I don't think it quite reached the heights that we wanted it to reach. And again, I think we're all going to say the same thing. We're going to go through this episode and talk about how every scene was pretty banger. All the character work is amazing. Moving these characters around on the chessboard was great. But like, yeah, I think, just taking a quick scan of Twitter after the episode last night, I think everybody is pretty much in agreement that this wasn't the finale that was promised.
The finale that was promised. Yeah, exactly. And quite a few reviewers agree with it as well. But let's see where we end up by the end of this thing. All right, let's get into Team Black here. Jace gets to know the new Dragonriders and Ulf, Hugh, and Adam, with Ulf pissing everyone off. He even tries to tousle the prince's hair as a bit of a ball-busting move to prove that he is of Harwin's strong lineage. What an incredible amount of chutzpah, shall we say. Corlys later advises Rhaenyra, who still seems to want to avoid this war, thought maybe showing the advantage they have would make King's Landing just capitulate. He says to her, hey, now is the time to act. Don't underestimate anything. Halaena might ride. There's still other dragons out there. Like, don't underestimate and think you've got this thing won. Go and win it. And then later, and then he reveals the name of his new ship, which is an honor to Rhaenys by calling it the Queen Who Never Was instead of the Sea Snake, which is really sweet. Then Corlys tries to counsel Alyn, and it opens up old wounds as Alyn tells Corlys what he really feels about his newfound favor with him, which leads to an incredible scene. And then Rhaena spends 4 scenes trying to find the dragon sheep stealer so she can pair with it. That's where I'm stopping with Team Black. Other 2 scenes coming we'll talk about separately. So, Michael, your thoughts on just this stuff here with Jace and the Dragonriders and Rhaenys and Corlys and Alyn and Rhaena looking for sheep stealer there.
They've done a great job with Ulf and Hugh and Adam. Adam?
Yeah.
Like, they've just done a great job with the 3 of them, that you have these 3 lowborn people from different backgrounds, different areas, and just the distinction of these three characters, throwing them into the mix with Jace, like, it's automatic fireworks. And Game of Thrones has always been really good at this. Like, when they introduce these new characters, whether it's the Greyjoys, whether it's whatever, like, a character comes in and you're like, adding this ingredient to this recipe that I've been watching for a season changes the dynamic of everything. And Ulf particularly, really coming into that scene with Jace, you're just like, how the fuck are these people gonna get along? Like, like it really, it's, and you know, Ulf, I love the tone of House of the Dragon. I think it's great. Ulf and Tyland both add a nice bit of levity to a show that is very heavy soap opera. So that was all really, really enjoyable. Speaking of soap opera, Corlys talking to Rhaenyra and Corlys talking to Alyn, both really, really great scenes. I mean, not just the fact that Corlys named his ship after Rhaenys, but when Rhaenyra kind of thanks Corlys for all that he's done, he makes it really clear that all that he's doing, including being the hand, is for Rhaenys, not Rhaenyra, because he still thinks Rhaenyra had a hand in killing his son, didn't know she let him go off to live his gay pride life wherever he wanted to. But like, so he's still sort of is holding that. So like, I think, again, the dynamic between the two of them is allies. There's a respect there. Like, Corlys is going to do whatever he can to help her get on the throne, but not necessarily besties. And then the scene with him and Alyn, like, just like, I feel like this has been something that's been stewing all season. And so just to see Alyn finally like get to that point where he let loose and was like, are you fucking dumb? Like, this is how you've treated me my entire life. So excuse me very much, but I'm gonna just like, I'm gonna do my own thing, and I don't need you now because I clearly didn't need you before. Like, it's just, these are all the great dynamics. Like, Ulf and Jace, the Rhaenyra Corlys, the Alyn and Corlys. Like, this is why this was a good episode of television, because although I'm mad we didn't get to the stuff that I think we all wanted to get to, all of these scenes set up really interesting conflicts with the characters so that when Alyn and Corlys, you know, are out in the battle against the Triarchy together next season and shit gets real and they finally get really close, or Ulf and Jace become besties because Ulf saves Jace, like anything that's going to happen. I haven't read the stuff, so I don't know. But like, and also, you know, they're definitely elaborating in the show. So like anything can kind of happen. I think they've set up great dynamics throughout. Similarly with Rhaena, Rhaena running through the hills is pretty much like Daemon having visions this season. Like, we got it. I don't know that we needed to see quite as much of it. I think there was a lot of timing. I think a lot of this was Ryan Condal and the others sitting in a room going, this is the montage we want to end this season with. Like, we want to end on the brink of war. So this person has to be here. This person has to be here. This person has to be here. And as they were sort of building out the season, they went, I guess that means Rhaena doesn't really find this dragon until the very end. Have her run through the hills. I loved how janky that dragon looked. Like, that's a wild dragon. Like, I think, you know, we see all these dragons that are, you know, sort of raised by the Targaryens, and you're like, they're fearsome. But then you see a wild dragon and you're like, oh, that shit's been through the shit. Like, that's a wild one. So again, loved where we ended with Rhaena. Love that she's going to get this dragon. But could have used a little less running through the hills.
Yeah, there were 4 scenes of that. 4 scenes of it.
Well, let's be fair. There was running through the hills.
1.
There was stopping for a drink of water.
2.
There was wandering through the hills.
3.
There was finding a dragon.
4.
Very different scenes. Very different scenes.
Yes, fair point. Couldn't have put that all together in one scene. I suppose you're right. Shannon, your thoughts here on the Dragonriders, Jace, Rhaenys, and Corlys. Oh, sorry, Rhaenyra and Corlys, and Rhaenyra and Corlys and Alyn, and then Rhaena, of course.
So Ulf is sort of the classic example of when someone tells you who they are, believe them. I mean, the last time we saw him, he's holding on to Silverwing. He's having the time of his life. The next time we see him, he has his feet up. He was saying like, "Hey man, you probably shouldn't be doing. We're all dragon. Hey, we're all pals, right?" Him not knowing who Jace is when he comes in, it's just like, "Oh yeah, you know." Tell me more what I'm supposed to do, boy. And the moment he finds out that's the prince, it's like, it's not respect. It's, hey, we're the same, you and I. That story I heard about the bastard prince with the dark. Yeah, there it is. It is so. It is so uncomfortable. And watching, like, these are Jace's worst fears come to pass. Like when he called, which again, I do still think we saw a little bit of darkness in Jace when he calls the small folk mongrels. He's literally going like, that's what I'm talking about right there. So I mean, the scene was fantastic. You see Ulf button up a little bit, but by the next scene, he's back to his old Ulf ways.
Yeah.
The Corlys Rhaenyra scene again. I'm just such a big fan of Steve Toussaint. Watching the two of them together, and when he said that he had renamed the ship, that was a really, really touching moment, and getting to see like he made this selfless decision to where he's just like, everything I am doing, it is for you, but it's really for Rhaenys. You then get to see him confront the actions of his past.
Yeah.
And him trying to say like, man, I'm trying to help you. And Alyn just both barrels going in, kind of like, now you like me because everyone else is gone now. I mean, some of the dialogue that they gave Alyn in this was just really, really well written, saying like, you're spreading out the crumbs of your favor. And you finally see Alyn crack a little bit, because Alyn has been so stoic, even with Adam. It's very much like, here is our duty, here is what we have to do. We see the emotion, the storm that is just brewing underneath the surface, and we get a little peek at it. And again, I mean, Corlys is by himself. Like, he doesn't really have anybody anymore. Everyone that was close to him is either living far away or they're dead. And so being confronted with the actions of his past, I mean, again, you just see what a fractured guy Corlys is at this point. And across the board, I thought that was all great. And, Rhaena, like, there was a lot of, I think maybe I would have formatted it a little differently, like have her pair with the dragon, like maybe give us something. But the wings that hadn't been tended to, we were talking about it last night. I'm like, that looks like a horse whose hooves have never been like shaved or clipped. I mean, it's like this dragon, this is a feral beast. And, I've seen people adopt feral cats, and that's a process. I'll be curious to see what it's like with the dragon.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a pro wrestling fan. I can't look at it through another prism. All four of these guys coming together, Jace being the leader of a new 4 horsemen, and you've got 3 different characters here. Jace clearly feeling like he's above them. Ulf is like Jethro from Beverly Hillbillies. He found all this money, and now he don't know how to act in company. And so you've got that situation. But he also reminds me of a certain friend of ours from Mike Fox from Philadelphia. Mike Fox's friend, a certain friend that we've met maybe in passing at times in group functions over at Mike Fox's house. He reminds me of that. Just says whatever's on his mind, can't understand how to read the room, and gets everybody into trouble who's around him. So a fascinating character Ulf is. And Ulf may what's interesting about Ulf is he can go 3 different directions, right? He can be an idiot who costs them the battle in a certain critical moment, or he can be a guy who actually saves Jace, so they develop a new friendship, or he makes a critical mistake, really goes through the ringer in his own mind, learns from it, comes out the other side. So Game of Thrones does this with all characters. It's really interesting to see. We'll see where that goes. Hugh's nobility is there for everybody to see. He's already a knight in, it's not in name, and he will be at some point. And I like that Adam is like, look, I'm trying. I don't want to be noticed. I'm here to help, but I don't need to make a name for myself or make you see me. And that I think was why Rhaenyra chooses him to go with her to Harrenhal. She trusts him in that way. So I like that. Plus he's connected to Corlys. So there's a nice strength in all of that. In the Corlys and Alyn scene, that's fucking beautiful, man. If you're an actor watching that, the writing here is incredible. And I think Sarah Hess does a wonderful job in that it's Corlys who thinks who's opening the door to be like, hey, I'm trying to help you here. And Alan's like, oh, you want to fucking help me now? Let's talk about help. Oh, no, I don't want to. I'm good. No, bitch, you open the door. Let's fucking have this conversation. And I love that. He doesn't let him off the hook. And it's the only person besides Rhaenys and maybe even Rhaenyra who's ever talked to Corlys this way. And I thought that was fantastic. And him stating his claim by the end, I will go back to where I was after this is over, and that is alone and without you. And I thought that was really strong because something's going to happen in these wars and these battles. they're going to come together as father and son, and you look forward to that. So yeah, great stuff. And the Rhaenyra stuff, fine. Yes, let's get to it. Nothing much to say about that. Yeah. All right, let's move on to Team Green here. Tywin Lannister negotiates with the Triarchy and surrenders the Stepstones and mucho dinero to get them on Team Green's side. Plus, he begins a relationship with Admiral Shariko Lohar, who's played by Abigail Thorne, fantastic actress who's come in off of YouTube. She's came out as trans in 2021. She was also one of the witches in The Acolyte, if you remember, the tall one on the roller coaster, having a couple of lines there. And after some mud wrestling with Admiral Lohar and some drinking and some terrible singing and ball busting, they are now on board together to go back to go to Harrenhal for the battle. Larys convinces Aegon to leave King's Landing for Bravos, but not before Aegon reveals that his penis was flamed off, and Aegon counters that he could kill Aemond. They don't have to leave, but then Larys says, oh yeah, you'll also remove Vhagar from the equation, and that's what convinces Larys to eventually take off. Aemond goes after the small folk even more with new ship inspections, goes wild on Halaena and Alicent when they won't obey him, and then later he confronts Halaena on a balcony, and she reveals how he is going to die in the God's Eye Lake, which is next to Harrenhal, and what he did to Aegon, that she knows what he did to Aegon. He threatens to kill her possibly, and she's like, do it. It ain't going to stop what's coming for you. Also, Criston Cole is confronted by Gawain for sleeping with Alicent, but he admits his fault, speaks very highly of Alicent, which blunts Gawain's sword. And then we find out that Criston is clearly suffering from PTSD from the dragon experience, even more so. And now he's in an existential crisis. So interesting stuff going on with Team Green. Shannon, your thoughts on all this stuff? What do you feel?
I mean, everything with Thailand and the Triarchy was just fantastic. I mean, like watching the behind the scenes, the house that dragons built. Them talking about like how do we one paint this, like this is a different part, like this is not Westeros, this is a different part of the world. How do we make a Westerosi lord a dandy, all uncomfortable? Like we put him in the heat, we make him sit on the floor. I mean, it was just so much fun, and the actor who plays Tylan is really funny. Like we don't see it a ton. Like we got a lot of it at the small council scenes, but watching him just be so out of his element, and then the fact that he has to fight this admiral as Shikaro's looking at me like, I'm not gonna sail with a man who can't best me. when the one Triarchy guy says, well, he's tall, but he's thin. That whole sequence was so funny. And the mud that they find to shoot in, it is globular. Like, I have never seen mud like this in my life. But then just watching how much, like, those two performers, they got a lot of mud in their stomachs that day. But the whole, like, knowing that, like, now he has to impregnate the admiral's wives. It is just so... The Lannisters were so cunning and so fearsome in Game of Thrones, and to see like this is where they started. Like it's always been known that they're like super rich, but knowing just again like just what a dandy. Well, I'm the master of ships. It's just so funny to see him on his heels the whole time. Going over to Aemond, seeing that he was not going to fight Rhaenyra and her new dragon, so he goes and burns the town instead. Like you just see the depravity in this guy's soul. And Alicent, again, her worst fears coming to pass. Like I knew it was going to be bad. This is so much worse. And Helena's, again, we talked about it before, just that inconvenient clairvoyance that she has. We're just like, why do they hate her? Like she's so disconnected. And watching Aemond be like, okay, it's you got to fight. And she's like, I'm not going to burn anyone. Like, I don't wish to do this. Like, our wishes are secondary. This is what we have to do now. And that scene with the two of them, where we see that first real moment of agency that Halaena has, where she finally looks someone in the eye, literally in the eye, and says, like, your Aegon's going to be king again. And you're gonna die. I mean, the fear that you see on Aemon's face is just so satisfying. Like, because a cornered tiger is when they're the most dangerous. So even though he is showing vulnerability right now, like this is only going to produce more terror and more tragedy.
What about Criston Cole and Gawain? Thoughts on that?
Man, Freddie Fox, I love that guy. And it took
criminally underused.
Criminally underused. He's also in an episode of The Gentleman that he's fantastic in that I just watched on Netflix. But like literally everyone in the back watching, like, is this fight about to happen? And Cole's a changed man.
Yes.
Like to a degree, like having seen the level of destruction that a dragon is going to produce, he's like, man, it doesn't matter what we do. Like, he's like, at this point, I would welcome death. I still think he's a piece of shit. But at this point, he's a piece of shit that is very aware of his own mortality.
Yeah, I think there's such great correlation. I used to think it was Aemond and Daemon who had the correlation. I think Kristen Cole and Daemon have the correlation. Both men who've been, in essence, kind of jilted and hurt and frustrated and angered and relied on their physicality. Now, both of them in this episode clearly experiencing something that has affected them going forward and changed them fundamentally, possibly as human beings, which we'll get to that later on. Michael, your thoughts on everything going on here with Team Green? What'd you feel about all the stuff that went down with these people here?
I mean, agree with Shannon. Everything with Tylan and the Triarchy was hilarious. Just great. Like one of the things I always think about this because it's a good screenwriting tip. Like when you think of a film, a big part of a great film is like, what's the first shot of a film? It's something you don't think a lot about as you're watching a great movie. You get done, you're like, I love this movie, but what's that very first shot that you see that sort of establishes you and pulls you in? And some of the best movies in the world have these amazing first shots that you're like, okay, I'm already invested. And Game of Thrones episodes, House of the Dragons episodes are like little films. So starting on this tropical environment and just tracking this monkey coming in, we are automatically, kind of to Shannon's point, taken out of anything that we've seen in the rest of the season. So even before we see Tylan sitting on the floor, even before we see the Triarchy, like Gita did such a great job of establishing, this is something new. And I think that was really, really, really cool. Also, the casting of Lohar is really interesting.
Yeah.
In the books, Lohar is referred to as a male admiral of the Triarchy or captain of the Triarchy. And so casting it the way they did and having a character refer to themselves as he and him and having this whole relationship develop is so interesting and fascinating and just kind of worked. Like the whole thing was fun. And again, as Shannon was saying, every piece of it, the Tylan having a Lannister being in the heat, a Lannister having to sit on the floor, a Lannister not having their shoes on, but also dealing with this character that you're like, what's happening? It's comedic, but it's the right level of comedic for House of the Dragon. I also think, as funny as all of it was, as I was saying with all the other things, with Jace and Ulf, with Alyn and Corlys, like this relationship, like Tylan is very funny and sort of comedic and kind of a dandy in what we've seen so far, as Shannon said. But I mean, there's a great opportunity here in season 3, particularly with these two in this relationship. Like he did beat Lohar in the mud.
Yes.
Like he got there at the end. I think we're going to see Tylan as a character become a lot more interesting and not just this kind of dandy comic relief that I think is going to be a really, really fun ride as we get further into season 3. Aemond is great. Yeah. Aemond is horrible, but like so great at being horrible. I mean, just the entire, he had the biggest nuclear bomb for most of the season. And he was like, I have the biggest nuclear bomb. Nobody can do anything. And the frustration that he has that Rhaenyra just all of a sudden got 3 more bombs in this Cold War that's been happening all season. And his inability to do anything about it. Like just the frustration. And as Shannon said, he's cornered and that makes him, and as Corlys said, he's cornered and that makes him super dangerous. But everything he does, when he runs in on Alicent and Halaena, like it's just watching him have no options is really interesting and kind of like creates its own level of tension because we see what he does when he'll lash out on anybody. So he's just all of a sudden become this wild card that's super, super dangerous. And then Aegon and Larys, those two best best, most awkward buddy comedy of all time. This is the Aegon and Larys planes, trains, and automobiles that we're going to get in season 3 is going to be interesting to see. But Aegon, is a really fun and interesting, like, once he got burned, you kind of got this sense that Aegon was going to be just sort of down for the count, and has sort of become this really interesting, like, he does have this claim to the throne, and Larys doing what he's doing and kind of taking him off the table for a while, combined with what Halaena says, it's like, oh, this is another piece. So, like, as much as this season ended in sort of the same place it began, a lot of, like, Aemond is now in charge. Aegon has gone into hiding. Otto, which we'll get to, is, like, in prison. Like, so all the pieces on the board are in vastly different places, which changes the entire dynamic, let alone the number of dragons. So I think that's really interesting. And then, the Halaena and Aemond scene, Helena's just great, because it's not even that, Shannon was saying it was defiance, or that we really saw her sort of stand up to Aemond. And we sort of did, but I don't even know that that's what it is. She's just completely on a different plane. Like, I don't even know if it was standing up to Aemond as much as she's like, this is just true. Like, it's like she was telling Aemond the sky was blue. And he's like, I could kill you. And she's like, okay, kill me. The sky's still blue, bitch. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is just, I'm just spitting truths here. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And again, putting Aemond in this position where, as much as he says to Halaena, I could have you killed for this. This is treason. And she's like, okay. It's just another area where Aemond is, like, completely ineffective. And the more impotent he feels, the worse it's going to be for everybody. So a lot of really interesting dynamics at play here. Yeah.
Kristen Cole, any words on that?
I hate the guy, but I love the guy.
You're starting to come around on him.
It's not even that you're coming around. He's not done anything particularly heroic or noble, but and he's still the douche of all douches of Westeros.
Right.
But he kind of, they give him the speech that is sort of thematically what this entire series is about, which is, look, we can all run around all we want. These two families have dragons. And having witnessed what one dragon did, and now there's all of these dragons at play, like, this sucks for us. Like, when he's like, it would be great if we just died now, because what we're going to go through is going to be even worse, and we're going to end up dead. Like, it's the thematic, like, earlier in the season, I think it was it Alicent who said this? I think it was on Team Green, but, like, there was the discussion of, like, when the royal family is at war, when the royal family is having drama, it's the lowborn that pay the price.
Yeah.
Like, they're all having their who gets to sit on the throne, and you did this to me and you did this to him, but it's everyone else who pays the price for this battle. And I think he sort of has recognized, he thought he had some agency in all of this, thought he had Aemon's ear, thought he had this, and he realizes that when these people are fighting and they all have dragons, like, we're all fucked. The end result is we're all fucked, and that's what we're going to get into in season 3.
Yeah, I love the John Lannister stuff. I agree with you guys. That was a lot of fun. It's a nice change of pace to start that way, kind of get us before we get into the more serious stuff of the episode. I really enjoyed his chemistry with Abigail Thorne, Jefferson Hall, I think is the actor's name. Nice to see them come together. Very much shades of Brienne of Tarth and Jaime Lannister. So I like that you're having that element in a different way here, much like you're having Melisandre and Stannis through Alice Rivers and Daemon. So it's nice to have a little allusions to it, but not really dive into it. So, and you're right, it may go further. He may become a bigger part here as we move into season 3. The Larys and Aegon stuff, I love that they're developing some relationship. And Aegon, I think, is starting to have a little humility. Yes, rum, sure, let me relax. Let me kill, but no, you're going to lose Vhagar. Fuck, you're right. All right, fine. I won't die. I'm going to take off with you in this wooden thing to head to, what was it, Bravos, and hang out with the goat fuckers, but I'll be there for a little bit. Then I'm going to come back and be king. I think what you're seeing with Aemond is what happens when you haven't come to terms with your past trauma, your childhood trauma, and it's been playing out because his reaction is kill everything, destroy everything, inspect all the ships, close all the gates. This is his reaction to everything. When you don't obey me, I'm going to grab your arm and yank you. You're going to ride Dreamfire, bitch. And it's like, no, that's not how these things work, man. And so now that he's lost all his options, he's really flailing. And in the flailing, and Who have we seen recently who is flailing around? We see the most dangerous aspects of him coming out.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see where that all leads to, and clearly leads to him dying in the God's Eye Lake, which is next to Harrenhal, as I said. And Halaena, I thought, and Alicent, I think we can't overlook Alicent being defiant to Aemond in a way that she hasn't been before, ripping Halaena away from him, telling him not like this, not like this. And Aemond actually listens and walks out angrily. But then later, without Alicent, I think that's important, confronts Halaena, thinking he can convince her, thinking he can manipulate her, but she's not having it. And you're right, she's on a whole nother plane. She's seen the bigger picture. She understands what's happening, and it's the frankness that really unsettles Aemond about everything, which is why he kind of just, in a daze walks away from her. And the Kristen Cole stuff is great. I just love it. I think what helps is him admitting, yeah, I've followed women and it's broken me and it's been my fault. And he's like, why don't you resist? And he goes, if only it was that easy. If only it was that easy, but like, I like that. It humanizes him more that he's admitting the mistakes that he's made. And I wonder where this leads to. I started seeing Lancelot from Excalibur, where he becomes this crazed priest with a big beard and shit. I don't know, but it could be interesting to see for sure.
I think you bring up a really good point, actually, about Aegon, which is, like earlier in the season when Aegon was on the Iron Throne, and like Hugh came up and he was like, "We need some money," and the guy came up and he was like, "You took away my goats," and you could see that Aegon had the desire to be a good king and just didn't have it in him. Like he wasn't smart enough. He wasn't like, he just didn't have the tools. And that's been a constant. Alicent coming in and saying like, what did you do with your dad's books? And he's like, I didn't burn them. I just put them away, but who cares? And him just carousing. Like we've said all season, like Aegon isn't Joffrey. Aegon kind of looks like he has the desire to be a good king. He just doesn't have what it takes. And he's just not equipped. And even putting him with Larys, whether Larys's goals are altruistic or selfish, I think we all have our assumption on what those are. Yeah. You're putting him with a very smart, very clever person and sending them away together for a while. Mm-hmm. And even, taking in what Halaena says to Aemond, it's like Aegon has nothing but his mind left to him.
Right.
Like he's not ever going to be a fighter. He's probably never getting on a dragon again. He doesn't have his dick. Like he's pretty much got his mind and that's it. So like, cause it burst like a sausage, as he said.
Yeah.
But like, so I think we're going to see this really interesting thing where Aegon might actually grow into a wiser, more steady person than others in his family. And that's going to be a really interesting journey as well. So again, all the character dynamics and who they placed people with was really, really interesting in this episode.
Aegon, the whatever his name that he came up with at the end for himself.
Oh yeah, what was it?
The Realm's Delight.
The Realm's Delight. Hello.
By the way, that sounds like a drink you could order at like a Westerosi bar.
I saw it at the Seas Candy store. Let's take a quick break and we'll get into the two big scenes here at Harrenhal and with Rhaenyra and Alicent right after this. All right, let's do it. Daemon's vision of ice and fire. Daemon is doing West Wing shit at Harrenhal, walking from place to place and checking everything. When Sir Alfred Broom shows up and basically pitches treason, and the werewood whisper, traitor, around him. Sir Simon Strong, who of course was going to play a role, is witnessing all this shit, sends a raven to Rhaenyra to tell her about it. Alice brings Daemon later on to the Godswood, where he communes with the bleeding tree. By the way, the face on the tree, based on George R.R. Martin's face. So go back and take a look at that. And he sees a vision of the Song of Ice and Fire here with the three-head raven, the White Walkers, his drowning and death, 3 dragon eggs in a fire, and Daenerys, which apparently they couldn't afford Emilia Clarke, and Rhaenyra on the Iron Throne with Halaena, of all people, appearing to tell him it's all a story and you're but one part in it. You know your part. Rhaenyra then arrives at Harrenhal later with Adam and confronts Aemond, who is seemingly a changed man and who pledges loyalty to her after telling her that winter is coming in High Valyrian. And Rhaenyra says to him after he commits to her and all this, like, leave me again at your peril. And he smiles wryly and says, I could not. I have tried, my queen. And Sir Alfred Broom sheepishly bends the knee as well, going, oh, fuck, I'm so fucked here, which was fantastic. So, Michael, your thoughts on this vision of ice and fire here as we go in?
Sir Alfred Broom is great.
Yeah.
That motherfucker was great. Showing up, thinking he had it. Like, the whole bit with him was like, all right, so Daemon, like, she's great, she means well, but we need a king. And him just saying nothing, and Simon Strong sort of watching from the shadows, like the whole thing, I was like, this guy thought he had a plan, and he thought he knew it was going down, and he didn't know he was showing up at Luigi's mansion and it was all gonna go to shit. Like, it was great. Here's my issue with Daemon's vision, and this is just my bigger issue with Game of Thrones, and I blame Benioff and Weiss for this. Viserys telling Rhaenyra about the Song of Ice and Fire, and that they need to do this because all this is super important. And Daemon having this vision where we see the White Walkers and we see Daenerys and we see the dragons. We saw the whole problem that they have with this is they're building this whole thing that there's this super important prophecy that's super important. And maybe when George R.R. Martin gets done with his books in 2037, it will be like, okay, cool, that's why it's important. But based on season 8 of Game of Thrones, you're like, was it? Was it? Because Tyrion just puts Bran on the throne because he had the best story, which is debatable. So it's like the whole build up around the Song of Ice and Fire, it inherently, as much as I'm loving House of the Dragon, as soon as I see those specific things, which are super important, like I don't know how you sidestep it, but it just takes me directly to some of the most disappointing parts of season 8 of Game of Thrones. So you sort of go, I get that you think this is important, but have you seen season 8? Because maybe you'd make some different decisions, Daemon. Maybe you'd be like, maybe it's not so important. So I get why they did it. And look, as far as aside from my own personal issues with season 8, I thought it was really interesting. And actually, when you watch the behind the scenes stuff, it's not that they couldn't afford Emilia Clarke. Maybe they could, maybe they couldn't, but it was really more important that like to us, it's important that it's Daenerys.
Yeah, right.
But to Daemon, he doesn't know who this is. He just knows there's some far off person who's going to bring back dragons. Right. And so seeing this character who is sort of in shadow, but the dragons coming out of her is the more important piece, which I thought visually, the way they did the whole vision was really, really cool. Like gave us all the Easter eggs we wanted, but didn't go too overboard with it. And then ending with Halaena, really, really interesting. Because as we said, like Helena's sort of above. I saw some people on Twitter kind of saying this meant that she was like secretly on Team Black. And I'm like, she's not on Team Black or Team Green. She's just like, guys, I read the book. I know what happens.
Yeah, basically she's a book reader.
Like,
that's
I read the book. But then, Rhaenyra showing up. First of all, the way everything was shot, like that one, like say what you will about this episode didn't give us the battles which we want, which we all agree with. But man, like those dragons flying into Harrenhal, and then like Rhaenyra walking up that slope as Simon Strong is coming down, and it's all like shot in profile. Like it was absolutely gorgeous. And then the entire scene between Rhaenyra and Daemon, like her walking in and. Like, I feel like because of Daemon's vision, they sort of tipped their hand to us a little bit. So I didn't quite feel the tension of which way is this going to go. I think based on his discussion with Broom and then his vision, I'm kind of like, yeah, like he knows Rhaenyra is the real deal. So there wasn't quite the tension that I think there could have been because we kind of knew where he was going to go. But it was still her coming in, seeing this whole army and her not quite knowing, is this my army or am I about to be in some shit? Was really great. And then the Valyrian, and I think, to your point, John, the moment at the end where she's like, don't ever, if you leave me again, it's going to be shitty. And he's like, look, I tried. Clearly couldn't do it. Was very Daemon and very great. Did we need to see him wander around the mansion for an entire season? Maybe not. That's a fair question. But here's where we are. He got the army. It was really, really great. So like, I like where we ended up with all of it and like the way they shot the whole thing. I mean, like really the way they made this feel like an army of thousands was really, really impressive. So
just seeing the encampment as they were flying above.
Yeah, seeing the encampment, like love seeing the army. Would have loved to see him fight. But like we got the army, so we're good.
We're good. We got one half. Shannon, your thoughts here on everything that happened in this vision for Daemon?
Well, I mean, even starting with Rhaenyra, the fact that she picked Adam to go with her, and not Jace, like obviously she wants to keep her son safe because if something does happen to her, it's like, look, this lowborn rider, you know, you're my heir. I'm gonna take the cannon fodder over here. But as she sees all those tents around Harrenhal, again, as Vogel already said, unclear of like, is this my army or is this about to be my doom? And as she walks in, like you know, she carries herself like a queen, but there's also the unknowing of, all right, who actually are these guys? And, you know, it wasn't that long. It was the last week where the lords were kind of like, we don't like Daemon.
Yeah.
But you see, they have kind of fallen in line. I mean, even the one who's just kind of like, hey, you know, the sheep, does your dragon like pigs? Your dragon like pigs? Yep, prefers them. Get this going. You see, they all fall in line really, really fast.
Yeah.
The Sir Alfred Broom, I mean, yeah, I really like this character. I hope he doesn't go anywhere. Because you see, he thinks he has this winning hand. He's like, I'm about to, you know, to play this winning hand. I finally have come out on top. Maybe I'm even going to be this guy's hand. You know, the future's so bright, I got to wear shades. And as Daemon is basically pledges his loyalty to Rhaenyra, as everyone is cheering, you see him be like, I just forgot something back here. Excuse me for a moment. I thought that whole thing was fantastic. But then the actual vision, yeah, that was, I mean, I was not expecting that's where it would go. But I did think it was interesting that they chose to focus on Dany versus Jon Snow.
Yeah.
Because Jon Snow is a Targaryen.
Yeah.
So, but I thought the whole thing was shot really, really well. And again, in an episode that was, or rather a finale that was packed with disappointment, the episode itself was packed with a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. Also, like, let's not overlook Simon Strong's sort of tentative slow clap at the end.
Yeah.
Where he was like, oh, this all worked out. I guess I'm okay. Like, that man might be the MVP of the season for 100%. Like, he just, I want him to show up in every scene next season at the end of a battle. Oh, that was an interesting battle, everybody. Like, I just want him to just come and comment on everything.
That's if Flop Sweat had feet.
Basically. You know what? This is what I liked about the sequence, and both of you correct. It's so beautifully shot and lit, and the cinematography was incredible. I like that Rhaenyra is the kind of person that'll go like, fuck this. I'm going to go confront him. Enough of this. I sent Sir Alfred, you know what? I don't even want to wait for Sir Alfred Broom's Ravens. I'm going to go find out what's going on because Sir Simon's strong. And she's even, when she gets the message, she's super pissed and she's like, fuck this. Gets Adam. I think she brings Adam because she has a belief in him. And I always think because of Jace, what Jace did with the phrase, surrendering your hair and all, I don't think she wants to put him in Daemon's sight line, just firing line just yet. So I think that's why she brings Adam. There's a trust there that's building from their moment on the beach to this. So I think that's why. But her walking in, as you said, Mike, she's a queen, so she carries herself like a queen, but a queen amongst all these dudes who might not be in her allegiance. I thought you could see that she was a little unsettled by it until Daemon comes out, and then they have the conversation. And don't discount Daemon saying winter is coming. The fact that he's saying it in High Valyrian, I think, is really powerful. And then their meeting at the end is basically these two headstrong alphas who are in love with each other, clearly going like, don't fucking do this shit again. Because I tried. I couldn't. I love it.
True. I mean, like, she doesn't. I mean, as much as all season long people were like, Rhaenyra, you can't go out. You can't go out. You're the queen. You could, like, she is like Simon Strong is like, hey, I think we're treasoning. I don't know, but I think maybe some treasoning is happening here.
It wasn't Broom. It was Sir Simon Strong. Exactly. Yeah.
Like, and he wasn't wrong. Like, from what he saw with them talking at the Godswood, it looked like collusion. He didn't know that Daemon had already, like been like, no, I'm good. I saw some ghosts. I'm with Rhaenyra now. Yeah. But so, like, she saw that treason thing. So she said, to your point, John, she's like, fuck it. I sent Broom. I don't even know what's going on. I'm gonna get on my own dragon and go deal with this. But I do think the bigger part with the Jace of it all is you're going into a situation where your uncle lover husband might be raising an army against you. Don't take your heir.
Well, fair point.
Like, don't take your heir. Like, because if the worst happens and you and Daemon end up having a dragon battle and he kills you, Jace is next in line. So don't take him. Take the spare. Yeah.
Okay, fair point. But I also think it's important to see if I think it'll be curious to see. I'm curious to see in the next season how much Daemon has actually changed from these visions and really giving his all to her. Because seeing the bigger picture, yes, for now it makes sense because in the big picture she does end up on the throne, so they do win in the vision. but is it enough to really carry him as things start to fall apart? Possibly.
And it's interesting because from a writing standpoint, I mean, for 2 seasons now, Daemon's character has been built around, I care about you, but I really want that fucking throne.
Yeah.
That's what his personality is. So what I'm more curious about, to your point, they spent an entire fucking season giving him visions. If he's not a changed man, what the fuck were we doing for all these episodes? But to your point, what is Daemon as a changed man? If we all of a sudden have a Daemon who is loyal to Rhaenyra, who is a true believer in the Song of Ice and Fire and that winter is coming, he's going to still be a violent fighter, really powerful ally, but is he as interesting? What else do we give him that keeps him interesting to us as an audience? Because if he's just hey, I'm your right-hand husband uncle, cool, but is he as dynamic as he's been so far?
Right. It's easy to change when you're on a retreat. When you come back to the real world, do those things you've learned hold up? We'll see.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the final scene here. Rhaenyra and Alicent. I'll go through this quickly. So Shannon, I want you to dive in on this first. Alicent, who earlier in the episode asked Grandmaster Orwell for help with passage, shows up at Dragonstone to have it out with Rhaenyra and essentially hand over the kingdom to her. Rhaenyra calls out Alicent's holy that attitude about virginity and all of that. Alicent admits she made a mistake with Aegon, and Rhaenyra snipes at her about it. She realizes Alicent does that all the men in her life have let her down, and she just wants to make amends to Rhaenyra and get the fuck out of there with Halaena. She tells Rhaenyra that Viserys loved her mother Aemma to the end of his life, and she reveals that Aemond is soon leaving for Harrenhal with Halaena left in charge. She will make it so that Rhaenyra can come in with no bloodshed, take over the kingdom. And she just wants her and Halaena to be able to leave. Rhaenyra says she has to give up Aegon, which Alicent eventually agrees to, essentially sacrificing her 2 children, 2 male kids to die, except for the other one that, of course, we see later on the dragon, to die here in order to broker this quote-unquote peace. Alicent asks Rhaenyra to come with her, but she cannot. She says her part is here, whether I will or no. It was decided for me long ago. And as Alicent takes her leave, we see everything is in motion with the Lannisters, the Starks, the Hightowers, Otto in a cage, Tully forces marching forward here as the 2 queens head towards this battle. Shannon, your thoughts on this back and forth, this scene here to end this particular episode?
Emma D'Arcy and Olivia Cook just need to have more scenes together because they're just so captivating from the first moment to the last. I mean, it's literally Alicent is saying, or rather, excuse me, Rhaenyra is saying everything that Alicent said when Rhaenyra snuck into King's Landing. It is too late. It is too late. We had an opportunity to avert this, and that opportunity was wasted. So now here's what's going to happen. And what Rhaenyra says about Aegon is exactly what Otto told Alicent. If Viserys dies, when Viserys dies, if Rhaenyra becomes the queen, your kids are going to be put to the sword because there has to be no question about who has the strongest claim. And if your children are dead, it is 100% going to be Rhaenyra. And that is the brilliant thing about this show is you have your white hats and your black hats. You have people that are your bad people. Yeah. But everyone is mainly a gray hat. Everyone has people are imperfect. I mean, everyone has those moments where man, they did the right thing. And oh boy, that was a bad decision that you made for a bad reason. So the whole thing was just so fantastic. But you see the slow surrender of Alicent Hightower, where she's basically I'm done. You know what? You can have it. I just want to take Halaena. I want to take my granddaughter or my grandchildren, and I want to go. I will go away. But the thing with Alicent thinking okay, Aemond leaves to go to the Riverlands. Do you really think this is the end of it? I mean, Rhaenyra, say Rhaenyra takes King's Landing without any bloodshed. Guess what? Aemon's going to come back, and he's not going to roll over the way Alicent is right now. So the eventuality of this conflict is just, you can't, the train has left the station, you can't stop it. And again, just that slow surrender that Alicent has, it was just fantastic to watch. The 2 of them together are just magic.
I agree. One of the reasons I think I hunt out interviews with both of them is that we don't get enough of them like in the show. And so I enjoy watching their chemistry because they're genuine friends, and you can see it in their interviews together, which I think is fun to watch. And I agree, because Alicent promising Aegon without knowing that Aegon has taken off, she's not going to be able to deliver Aegon. So what will happen next season when she can't deliver what she said she was going to deliver? Mike, your thoughts on this back and forth between these two powerful ladies?
Well, kind of to both of your point, I do hope that Rhaenyra flies in and does take the Red Keep, only so that once she realizes Aegon is gone and Aemond's going to be attacking, we have the two of them together next season. Like, I just want them together in the shit, because when they're together, it really is magic. You guys hit most of it, that, Alicent coming in and being in the position that Rhaenyra was in when she was at the Sept. And Rhaenyra being in the position that Alicent was in, where it's like, bitch, it's too late. I also thought of Johnny throughout most of the scene, because Rhaenyra just going in on Alicent on everything that John has ever said about Alicent. like Alicent, like Alicent was like, well, oh, and then she mentions that she took a lover, and Rhaenyra's like, oh, you took a lover, but I thought you were so religious and so whatever. And she's like, bitch, I clung to whatever I could cling to. Leave me the fuck alone. Like, it literally felt like John Rocha being like, hey, Alicent, let's go through everything. And Alicent being like, I just want to leave. I just want to leave.
I'm not going to lie. I watched the whole scene with my arms folded as well, going, really?
One thing that Alicent said that I thought was really, given that House of the Dragon takes place hundreds of years before Game of Thrones, and given that the book House of Dragon is written more like a history, where a lot of the character details are left out, I thought it was really interesting when Rhaenyra said to Alicent, history is going to see you as a cold, cruel, calculating queen, or whatever she said. And Alicent was just like, I don't care about history.
Yeah.
I don't care. I let them think what they want to think about me. I don't give a shit. I think that really opens the doors as we get into the actual war to see, like, whatever's in the book, the pages of the book, is very open to interpretation. And I'm curious to see where the show deviates. And Alicent sort of laying, like, I don't care what history thinks of me, this is what's really going on, I think really opens the doors to them being able to do a lot that's not necessarily on the page. And then, like, where we end everything is just sort of, it was a fantastic montage.
Yeah.
Like, it was thrilling. If this had been episode 9 of 10, I think we all would have been like, fuck yes, let's go. Like, the Dragonriders getting outfitted for their dragon outfits, like Rhaenyra finally getting her fucking dragon, like Otto Hightower. Who has Otto Hightower? Where the fuck is he? Who's holding him prisoner? We don't even know. Corlys taking his ships out, the Triarchy coming in, like, the promise of what's about to happen is huge. Just fuck you for 2 years.
Agreed. I also think the Alicent journey has been fantastic. And by the end here, it's been a journey of self-discovery. She ends up where she started, as the young girl who just wanted what was best for everybody. She was manipulated by a patriarchal society, by her dad, to be in this position. She really did love Viserys, it seems like, from the conversations she had. She really did misunderstand, and maybe a little bit of self-interest as well. But at the end, she is willing to surrender her children, something she wouldn't have done 3 episodes ago, even, because she realizes finally, after that cold plunge, what this all is all about and why she doesn't need to play anymore, and she just wants to walk free. And I think that was beautiful to see. So now I'm Team Alicent after this.
And visually, to your point about getting back where she started, remember Alicent in season 1 when she was younger, when she got nervous, she bit the shit out of her nails.
I caught that as well. That was great.
And so she gets to this moment of, what the fuck am I going to do? And we see her turn around and bite her nail. And you're like, it was a tiny little detail that I picked up on. I'm like, oh man, they are fucking cooking. They are cooking on this. Like, they know what they're doing. Just like, so frustrating as a finale.
Okay. Shannon, final words on this episode in this season, please. I know we got to go here. So.
You know what? I really, really enjoyed the season. I would have liked it if it had been capped off with something a little more exciting and dynamic. And I hate that we have to wait until 2026 to see how these pieces on the chessboard finally collide.
Yeah. Michael, your final words?
This was not a bad season of television. This was a spectacular season of television that did not have a spectacular ending. And whether that is their fault, whether that is HBO's fault, whoever's fault it is, I think this will go down as it's going to be very frustrating now. I feel like by the time we get to season 3, we'll be able to look back on this season fondly for all the stuff that was good about it. But yeah, it was not the finale, as I said, not the finale that we were promised, but it was still a hell of a ride to get there.
Yeah, fantastically well written, fantastically well directed. I think just about every episode worked. I think episode 7 was a little, but everything, or 6 rather, everything else worked so well. It was fantastic. Really well acted, really well written. But yes, would have liked to have seen some battles. And I'll be real curious in season 3 because season 2 started out with way lower viewership numbers. I wonder if the disappointment of season 2 finale will cause the numbers to go even down lower for a season 3 premiere. We will see, depending on how they promote it and pitch it down the road. And this Daenerys being in the Vision, that is some interesting retconning that may cause a lot of tongues wagging for 2 years before we see what they really meant by that instead of Jon Snow being there. So we will see. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching this spoiler review here from us on the Geek Buddies. We appreciate it madly. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at geek_buddies. On Instagram, at _geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, it's Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mikey.
After you do all that following, go ahead and smash that like button below. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he has got there. What did you think of this season? What did you think of this finale? Are you super disappointed? Are you done with House of the Dragon? Are you excited for what we're going to get in 2 years? Let us know in the comments below. If you're listening to us on a podcast, leave us some stars and comments there so more people can find us. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
And again, big thanks to all of you who joined us on this journey with all these reviews for this season. We appreciate it, Maddie. Look for more of our content coming out later on this week, our main show, and possibly a Cape Crusader review if we can line this up sometime in the next couple of days. We will see. But we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of the Geek Bites brought to you by the
Geek Buddies!